Good evening, fans. Tim Kitzrow here, the voice of NBA Jam, and you're listening to the Game Dev Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by CodeWritePlay.com. Whoa, boom shakalaka.
My mom gave birth in 1985. I was bluer than a Pac-Man ghost, barely alive.
So, Alex, thanks for jumping on a call. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Why don't we start by having you sort of introduce yourself?
Sure thing. So I'm Alex Rushdy. I'm the CEO and creative director at 13am Games, which is an independent video game developer based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Awesome. Very cool. And you are sort of riding high on the somewhat recent release of Dawn of the Monsters, yeah?
Yeah. We released it back in March on just about every platform we could put it on.
Right. Yeah. Super wide release. And that's something you guys seem like you've been able to do with your games pretty much, right?
Yeah. I mean, we want as many people as possible to pick them up. But Dawn was the first time where we released it on all these platforms day one, which was pretty exciting. Got
it. Very cool. So I got a lot of questions. The studio story sounds interesting to me. The games are all cool, popular. It seems like they've all done very well. So why don't we start by give listeners an idea what the team at 13am Games kind of looks like?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, as with any game studio, especially a small one, we all wear a lot of different hats. Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple of designers, we've got a bunch of artists, we've got some programmers, and we have a producer, but almost no one does just that. Like, for example, we have the person who actually, I guess he's mostly full-time a writer, but he used to be on the tech team, also writes and sometimes does design. I sometimes do design, sometimes I'll do art. Our artists tend to stick to art. But like our producer also does like audio implementation for our games. It's a pretty ragtag crew who does whatever needs to be done when it needs to be done. But yeah, we're about 10 people right now.
Nice.
And the biggest we've ever been is, I think the biggest we've ever been is 13, which is nice for 13am Games.
I was wondering if there was a connection there, and but that seems like a good sized team for the kind of projects you guys are tackling. And I read somewhere that the studio kind of started from like a graduating class from a game design program. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. So back in, what would that have been, 2013, I moved to Toronto to study game design, postgraduate game design at George Brown College. And it was a pretty unique program because essentially our teachers thought it would be a good idea to teach us really practical, exercises as if we were a studio. So they asked us to come up with a studio while we were in the program and start coming up with ideas for games, jamming game ideas, doing all sorts of stuff. And we all liked working together. And we were at a game jam, and we split into two teams at the game jam. And one of us made a game called Miss Cthulhu, which was actually our first released game. It was on iOS and Android a long time ago. And the other team worked on a very early prototype of Runbow. So we kept working on Runbow because we really liked it, and it ended up winning Best Design at Level Up, which was a student showcase for video game design. And from there, we kind of looked around and realized, hey, maybe we've got something here. Maybe we should finish this. Someone actually, a guy named Mark Rabbo, had been working in the industry kind of as like an agent and helping us, upstart companies get going. He talked to us and was like, yeah, I think you guys should really release this. You should apply for government funds, get it done. Then we showed it to Nintendo. Nintendo loved it. And they were like, yeah, you guys really do need to finish this. Come down to California, show it off at Indiecade. We'll get you dev kits and everything. This was back in the Wii U days. So, Wii U dev kits and stuff. And basically George Brown was like, hey, we'll give you studio space, an office space for a year we took advantage of that and we built and released Runbow, in that time. So there's a lot of sweat equity, a lot of sleepless nights, but we got it done. And our expectation was, hey, let's incorporate as a company, release Runbow, and then we'll leave with something on our resumes. But it made enough money that we could just keep making games, and that's where we are today.
Yeah, Runbow crushed it. And that's got to be fantastic for a first big project with fellow graduates and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty lucky. And it wasn't like, Runbow wasn't a success like, say, Shovel Knight or Cuphead, where we're, rolling around in Lamborghinis or whatever. But
nothing is.
It was, no, very few things are. But it was enough to keep us going if we were smart about it. And we all had to kind of learn to build the ship as we were flying it. But it gave us that cushion to make a lot of mistakes, which was nice.
And what fortuitous timing that that was about the time Nintendo was kind of reaching out and going like, let's strengthen the indie program, right? I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, we were among the first. I mean, I know they've retired this term because it's not part of their brand strategy or whatever, but we were among the first Nindies when they were using that term. Yeah, they were calling them Nintendo indie developers. Yeah.
And basically all the interviews I've read about, working with Nintendo at that time as an indie, like people enjoyed it. Like people said it was a good experience and that they treated everybody pretty well. And it sounds like they did pretty well by you guys too, right?
Yeah, they were instrumental. I don't think we'd be here today if it wasn't for Nintendo. And especially in those days, it was such a pretty tight-knit team, not only of people at Nintendo, but a tight-knit team of developers. Like all the Nindies knew each other. That's why we put all the Nindies we could into Runbow, was because we were all just kind of like friends figuring this out as we went along. It was a very different landscape back in 2013, 2014.
And that was a cool thing. For anybody who didn't know about that, Runbow incorporated a bunch of popular indie characters in the game, right?
Yeah. We had, I think there was 19 characters.
Wow. More than I thought.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And that, what a nice way to make friends around the industry. Is this something you always thought you were going to do? I mean, was this what you were aiming for as a career?
Not at all, actually. After high school, I studied visual art and design, and my focus was on, I wanted to get into filmmaking. And I wanted to be making I've always loved special effects, and I always loved special effects, fantasy films and things like that. So I wanted to get into that type of movie making. But after I finished my program, I started working as just like a videographer for hire. And I honestly wasn't digging the work that much. And I couldn't figure out how do I actually get into this industry? I lived up in northern Alberta, and all the special effects people are in LA. And I'd kind of just given up hope. I was like, you know what? I don't think this is a reasonable thing. You basically have to just have friends with tons of money. And I don't know if that was going to be a thing for me. So I started reconsidering. I took a gap year. I went and volunteered overseas in the Czech Republic for a while. And I was like, well, I always loved video games. And I applied to either go back to film school or to go to game design school. And I said, whoever accepts is where I go. It's what I'll do. And game design accepted. I moved to Toronto, and rest history.
Pretty fortunate. Now, of course, that takes hard work no matter what. And I'm sure your story's no different there, but it also takes a little bit of good fortune. It sounds like it's been in place when you needed it, right?
Definitely. Luck is a big part of it. Right place, right time. My story of entering the industry would be totally different from if someone was trying to enter it today.
And it's nice that your school took that approach. I don't hear that a lot, and it sounds like it went fantastically. I went to a tech school and got out around 2005, and there was no focus like that. It wasn't specifically game design, but it was software. Yeah. And even then they weren't why don't you guys form some teams, make something, try to earn some money if it goes well or something like that. That's great.
Yeah. It's, another person we have to, or another organization we have to thank for our existence was, George Brown putting their faith in us and saying, hey, go for it. And on top of that was also, the Ontario government has funding programs for game companies that we were able to take advantage of and use. So, all these different elements from all over, we were kind of able to bring together, like, okay, we got studio space here. We got, Nintendo's going to help us market the game. We've got funding from the Ontario government. We've got this, that, and whatever, pulled it together, and we're able to, give birth to 13 AM games.
Yeah, that's the other side is in the last probably 2 years now, I've spoken with a lot of developers who I didn't even necessarily know were Canadian, and they've taken advantage of programs like that and done great things. Like Canada seems to get it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a valuable industry. I mean, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
So many people were losing jobs, and they were like, well, how do we support industries? And it's like, well, game development, I mean, I'm not going to say that there weren't impacts, but we were able to transition from in an office to totally remote relatively painlessly, because all our work is already on networks. It's already on computers. So it was like, I think that there are people in the government and throughout different industries in Canada that are starting to recognize the value and the potential in the games industry and starting to do something about it.
Yeah, outstanding. I love hearing that, and it really is great. Like people who were, all of us for a while were effectively stranded, and it's like, can we find something to do or not? And the stories I've heard about that, people going like, well, we've got our keyboards, we've got our screens, and let's get to work. That's been fantastic. Yeah. So I'm curious. So, I mean, you guys have done Runbow, Double Cross, and now Dawn of the Monsters all in the last handful of years. I'm sure it feels like a fast time, but you guys have been at it for a while now. So has your role, as sort of broad as it is on some days, has it changed across that time, or has it always been kind of what you're doing now?
It's definitely changed over time. I guess on Runbow, I was a bit more low-level designer. I did co-direct it, but I was also a creative directed, or whatever we call it. I don't remember, but I did a lot more design on Runbow. And as the years have gone on and the games have gotten bigger, I've done less design and focused more explicitly on direction and management and that kind of stuff. I even did in Runbow, I did a lot of like art for the game too. Nowadays I don't do much art unless I like specifically want to and like ask, oh, can I please draw this or whatever. So that part's definitely changed. And then also, for the first, year of the company, we didn't have a CEO. We didn't have an executive team. And then I was kind of asked to step into that role in, I want to say 2015 or 2016. Which I had no experience in. And so I had to kind of figure that out as I went along. So that's kind of how it's changed over the years.
Well, certainly more responsibility. Although I'm sure that urge to get in and occasionally do some of that creative work probably doesn't go away, does it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's always there.
Yeah. Because, and I've looked through a little bit of your, I've seen some tweets. I've looked a little bit through your blog and stuff. And you strike me as a person who still enjoys being a fan of the stuff that kind of got you into this. I mean, am I off base here?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know I'm sure there's some people who, once they start making video games, they can't stand playing them, but I still love playing video games. I feel like I have even more appreciation for all kinds of media and entertainment now that I'm in the entertainment industry. Things that may not be impressive to other people are now just like so impressive to me when I see them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. I talk to a lot of people, and some of them are like, I'm so slammed with everything. I don't get to play the new games. I don't get to watch the stuff I used to like watching when I was a kid. And, that's always very sad. Honestly, it's not like, well, I get it. It's just, that's what the art is. It's like, wow, I'm sorry to hear that,
Yeah. I will say though, over the years, because I also get stressed for crunched for time in terms of how much time I get to play games or watch movies or whatever. And I also try to keep up other hobbies and stay healthy. But I guess I found over the years my, I wouldn't say my tastes have narrowed, but I guess I've more quickly figured out what I do and don't like, or what I will and won't like. Like, you know, years ago, if I bought a game and I wasn't that hot on it, I'd probably still play it all the way to the end. Nowadays, if I start playing a game and I'm not jiving with it in like 30 minutes, I'm like, nah, I'm out. I'm good. Yeah. Or if I'm like watching a TV show and, you know, it's not grabbing my interest or exciting me pretty quickly, I'm like, I have other things I can watch. So I've definitely become a little more impatient with that kind of stuff, where I'll stick to what I know I'll like, and then I'll branch out every now and then, and hopefully I enjoy it.
I'm that way too, and I don't know if it's a product of being a certain level of busy, you know, as a grown up and increasing responsibilities, or if it's just a product of like the Game Pass and Netflix age. You know, it's like there's, first of all, I'll waste a whole evening just scrolling through, like, what am I going to spend 20 minutes on before I have to go to sleep now? And yeah, the same thing. If I get into it and it does not grab me, I'm pretty notorious at this point for going like, I'm just going to move on, you know?
Yeah, it's hard. And I also wonder if it's, as we get older, I mean, we kind of are more quickly able to figure out our tastes. Yeah. You know?
I think there's a positive element to it. We're getting to know ourselves a little better.
Yeah. We're like, you know, I like 5-7 years ago, maybe I'd give that a shot, but now I know it's probably not my cup of tea.
Yeah. I'm curious about this part, because we don't hear from a lot of folks who do creative direction necessarily. And it's interesting because if you're a game developer at all, if you got into it, even if you're an artist and you worked on a game jam and stuff, you've got a pretty good sense of what it's like to have a vision for a game. But the interesting part to me is, as you have more of a team and you're kind of the steward for that vision for a group of people, I mean, like, what are the challenges there? Is that hard to get used to?
Definitely is. There can be a lot of challenges with being a creative director. I mean, I'd say that the challenge you want is probably that people are, you know, so excited or passionate about what you're working on that they're willing to you know, challenge you on decisions because they're that invested in it. That's a good problem to have, I think. But I think that really the biggest challenge in managing a creative vision for a game is the amount of management involved, the amount of work involved in just managing different teams, keeping everyone on the same page, keeping communication open. That's a ton of work in and of itself. It's, you know, like anytime someone asks me, especially on Dawn of the Monsters, like, what does your day look like? I'm like, well, on most days, first off, every day is different, right? But the one constant is most days it's like wall-to-wall meetings. That's what being a creative director ends up being, is it's just meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And then when I'm not meeting, it's writing documents or making diagrams or that kind of stuff. So being prepared for that is important, and being good at talking to people is necessary for sure. Yeah.
Is it tough to balance sort of the vision that you maintain and kind of set out to realize when I know you work with, you know, a close-knit group, a creative bunch of people? I mean, do things kind of shift, and is it hard to decide, like, oh, a new idea popped up, are we going to incorporate that? Like, somebody thought of a better way to do something. I mean, what's that balance like? Is it a moving target?
Sometimes it really can be. So one of the many things that I learned when I was in visual art and design is when you're making a piece of art, well, I guess it's what I consider the difference between art and illustration. And so when you're doing an illustration, it's you have a vision of something in your head. Okay, I'm picturing perfect, I don't know, apple. And then you draw it and it is exactly like you envisioned, right? Got it in your head, got it on paper. It's perfect. To me, that's illustration. That's not, quote unquote art. Art is when you're willing to have a dialogue with the piece that you're making. So maybe you notice something. Oh, the pencil moves in a weird way. And, oh, that looks kind of interesting. That's not what I intended. That's not what I imagined or planned. But if I go with that brush stroke that's different, or that color that's different, maybe this can be better than what I imagined. Maybe this can have a bit of a dialogue. So I think that's really important to have in game design as well. Whether it's you're playing the game and you realize something is or isn't fun and you need to change it, or someone else has a great idea and you have to incorporate it. Where that becomes a challenge, of course, is like time and budget. And that's where Steph, our producer, will tap me on the shoulder and be like, I don't think we have the money to do this. You really got to rein it in. So I try to be cognizant of that as well. That's kind of the only limiting factor. If we had loads more money and time, I would just take every cool idea and keep rebuilding the game until it was the ultimate game. But I think that's part of the fun. I think that's part of the joy of any creative endeavor, is having a dialogue with what you're making.
And it's clear from, as you mentioned earlier, launch is not the end of the road for at least the first couple of games, because you guys were still working on like, how can we get it in the hands of more players on more platforms and stuff. So is that mindset still kind of in place, or are you guys starting to think of the future a little earlier? I mean, how's it go?
Yeah, I mean, launch is, especially nowadays, launch is not the end of a game. I mean, you can put out a game, and of course, you can always add content to it. And, we are planning to add some content to Dawn of the Monsters. But there's also keeping the game relevant in people's minds, and keeping the intellectual property relevant in people's minds, and releasing in new territories, and looking for deals, in terms of like new platforms or Game Pass or subscriptions or any number of things. So like even with Dawn, even without the, we are planning more content for it, but even without that, we've got the toy line. So you can see, like Ganira here is like one of the toys. So that's another whole separate element of the IP. There was we went to G-Fest. We produced a comic book that we gave out at G-Fest. Other merchandise like shirts and stuff. Those are all kind of part of it. And then we've also got coming next year the Japanese version of the game. So that's a whole other massive market that we're obviously, because of the type of game it is, we're really excited to get into. And then once it's in Japanese, we're going to update the English one so you can play it in Japanese, like a Japanese monster movie if you want to. We had a it's actually still going on. We had a collaboration with a ramen chain in Ontario where you could get a super spicy mega shoyu ramen. So a ramen inspired by Megadon from the game. So yeah, I mean, it's just about keeping people excited and interested and building a community around your game and building relevance around your brand. I mean, that can't stop once the game's out.
Yeah.
It's got to keep going. Yeah.
I love that. There aren't nearly enough food collaborations in the game industry.
Right?
I feel like there have been some good ones when we were kids, and then we've gotten too far away from it. Bring back the food collabs.
Yeah, bring back the Mario cereal.
Yeah. Let me send off my box tops and get a Nintendo wristwatch or whatever. Like there were some good ones, but that's pretty cool. I do like all the different collaboration things you guys are trying, because that does bring back a little bit of that magic that maybe we've lost over time. Like, video games for like my kid, it's just like, oh, I can download this thing on the phone. It's rare to pay for a game here, and I can do whatever I want, and then I'll never think about it again. But this brings back a little of that old school fun, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you kind of hit it there. There's so many games nowadays, and a lot of the games that I grew up with were these like worlds, right? They were so memorable. I still have those memories because they were so iconic, and I spent so much time in them. And a lot of times they had stuff outside of the game. So we're always trying to make sure that we build new worlds that players are going to get excited about and want to be involved in beyond just downloading the game, playing it, and then turning it off.
Based on your tweets, your content online that I've seen, this game, and you'll have to tell me if I'm wrong, but this seems like the most uniquely you thing possible. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the most I've directed a game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know what the future holds for you guys, but I mean, mentally, where do you go from here? Because I mean, how could it get better than this, right? You know?
I'm just going to throw in the towel, actually. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to go become a farmer. Yeah. No, I mean, that was really exciting for me. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. Not just in the stuff that, like, you know, I specifically wanted to see happen, but also in the stuff that the team took into directions I didn't expect. You know, especially the narrative. Like, I had a high level idea for the narrative, but then Unai, our writer, took it in directions I didn't expect that were just so cool to see. As far as where to go, I mean, being in that world for so long, I don't mind doing a game where I'm not in that world for a bit. I definitely have other, you know, extreme passion projects that I'd love to get off the ground. I really love shmups, like, you know, R-Type and Darius and all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to make one of those types of games someday. I don't know if I ever will. Fingers crossed someone will let me do that. But yeah, I mean, I think that one of the reasons we wanted to do this game is because we identified that there are fans of this type of content, giant monster stuff, Ultraman, Godzilla, King Kong, and that it just made for a great video game idea that no one was taking advantage of. So we thought there was a gap there. And, you know, as long as there continues to be interest in this kind of stuff, I'd love to keep making it.
Yeah. I think the giant monster stuff is it's almost like hidden in plain sight when it comes to Western audiences, because you mentioned Japanese culture and it's certainly mainstream there. But when you think about it, you think about your Rampages, your Primal Rage, we've got so many examples of those things where we all flocked to it and went, this is the most fun I've ever had. And then we kind of stopped thinking about it. It's like, I don't entirely know what that is, but it seems like every time we go back, it's like, yeah, cool, bring on more. Like, what is up with us, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And we got so many comments like that, where people were like, they'd see the game and they would talk about, oh, I used to love Rampage, or I used to love War of the Monsters, or I used to love King of the Monsters, or all these games would flood back into their memories, and they'd be like, okay, I can't wait to play this. There hasn't been a game like this in a long time.
Yeah. And I'll be the first one to say, like, I was a big Rampage fan. When I found myself in a Walmart when they put that first Midway Classics, like Arcade 1-Up cab on clearance, and I ran into it in the wild, let me just say, we have to navigate around that thing in the basement now, because I bought it. I was so excited. Like, I loved that. But yeah, it's, and when you sort of branch out further into your Power Rangers and your Voltrons and Transformers and stuff, like, we love giant fighting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me the kind of stuff you do on, like, the blog, the things you're tweeting about. Like, what's some of that stuff you do?
Yeah. So the blog, controlallmonsters.com, it's honestly just my place to talk about super nerdy stuff that, you know, only myself, or I assume only myself and my friends care about. But the blog's gotten it gets decent viewership, so surprisingly decent readership on it. So it's where I like to talk about. Obviously, I'm a big fan of kaiju. I'm a big fan of video games. So I talk about usually where those two things intersect, because it's often in surprising ways that we don't realize, like the connections between Donkey Kong and King Kong, and how important those were to the foundation of Nintendo. There was a lawsuit that was so important that if it had gone the other way, we wouldn't have Mario.
Oh, right.
So I really like talking about the history of the video game industry. And so I kind of use this blog to talk about that, to highlight games that people may not have heard of, to talk about their development history, why they're important, all that kind of stuff. That's, you know, it's the kind of content that I enjoy reading and I like making. Yeah.
And I think needless to say, anybody who has found their way to this interview is probably also just perfect for that also. So I'd encourage people to check that out. You guys are a Unity team, right?
Yeah.
Is Unity making you nervous right now? Like, if you think about the new stuff and everything, like, this is sort of like, what's going on?
I mean, they're weird. They're doing weird stuff. Unity now is not the Unity that we knew when we started using it and when we started our company, which is frankly, it's disappointing for us. I get that they got to try to make money and all that kind of stuff. But as a company, they're doing really weird things that I don't agree with or understand. As a tool, it's still good. So as a tool, Unity is great for the type of games we like to make. Like at one point, we considered hopping over to Unreal, and we were talking a lot with Epic, and I remember we were just like, hey, like, has anyone ever made a 2D game with Unreal Engine? And they were like, we don't know. And then we looked into it, and the answer was no. And we were like, well, Unity used to be 3D only before they had 2D tools, and we had to force it to do 2D, and man, did that suck. So we were like, nope, not again. Yeah. So that being said, I mean, for us, Unity is a really good tool. We do like using it, but it is just that it's a tool. We make games. We don't make game engines. So we're always looking for new ways to make games, new engines that are out there. There's always something interesting going on. But yeah, I hope that I don't know. I feel like once a company becomes so big and they've got big money CEOs running it, it's like it's a lost cause. They're not going to go back to their roots. They've got the former EA president at the helm, and like EA used to be a cool company, like EA used to be tight. Not anymore. So yeah, hopefully they don't become the worst company in the world. That's my hope.
I hope for the sake of developers like yourself, I hope things at least settle somewhat. Like you said, like it may only get so much better, but maybe things won't be in such weird flux like it's kind of juggling in the air right now. I remember, as you said, when Unity was really strictly 3D, and it was such an effective tool and had all the great support for the different platforms you needed. Like, developers like me were trying to figure out, hey, we did this blog post because we found a way you can kind of get it to do 2D. And I remember when they finally launched those 2D tools, it was incredible. There was just dancing in the streets practically.
Yeah. It was a revelation. And it felt like we were being listened to as a users of the product, right? As developers, we were saying, hey, we really want 2D tools. We really want 2D tools. And then Unity was like, here you are. Thank you.
and to their credit, I think developers and teams using major engines of any kind, and there are a number, but I think of Unreal when I say that. I think everybody's on a little bit of a wild ride. I'm sure those folks weren't any more comfortable when Tim Sweeney spent all his time fighting with Apple and stuff. It's like, can we get back to what we're doing here?
Yeah. It's billionaires are weirdos, man.
In a positive light, it has really reconnected me with all of the small frameworks, and like I'm grateful to be a programmer because it gives me a few more options. Like, you don't necessarily have to jump from that to Buildbox or depend on what Game Maker is able to do for you. Like, you got a few more options.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of important right now, I think.
Definitely.
Why does Discord keep censoring your dinosaur photos, your drawings?
They think so. I run another company, right? I run another company that makes these toys. That's like my side hustle. I just do it for fun because I really love colorful soft vinyl toys. So I'm with some friends of mine. We're trying to design the next toy. And I don't know. I don't think he looks like a wiener, but Discord certainly does. And we're trying to send pictures of him to each other as we try the color scheme. And Discord's like, how dare you? How dare you try to send explicit images to your friends? And I'm like, first off, they're my friends. we're this. That's okay. Second off, these aren't wieners. Like, cut it out. So I don't know what's going on there.
I like to think a person is getting a notification on the other end of that, like, oh, these guys are at it again. Hold on.
Definitely.
It's actually probably the best part of that person's day when they get that notification and go, oh, what am I about to see? And like, oh, it's a dinosaur.
Yeah, it's a dinosaur, but I'm still not going to let them send it.
Right. I'm still going to cancel it, but thank God it wasn't another actual wiener, you know. That's cool, though. Like, how... That's got to be a kind of intimidating thing. Like, let's get into trying to design and, you know, create real toys. What was that process like?
You know, it was connected to Dawn of the Monsters. So a good friend of mine, Chris Olio, he lives down in Staten Island, and we met at a Godzilla convention.
Nice.
We go to a Godzilla convention every year in Chicago called G-Fest. And one year he needed some money because he was putting on a concert. And so he bought a table in the dealer's room, and he brought some of his stuff that he didn't want anymore. And he bought up a couple of collections, and he's just like flipping them at the convention. Right. So he ended up making pretty decent money. And I was like, oh, I've got stuff I don't need anymore. I should table with you. And then one year we kept joking, one year we're going to make a toy together. One year we're going to make our own kaiju toy. And one year we made enough money that we were like, this could be a reality. And once Dawn of the Monsters got greenlit, I called him up and I said, hey, I want to show you something. Look at these monsters we've got. We could license them to, like, we could create a company and have 13M license them to us. We could make toys with them for marketing purposes and kind of reduce our risk a bit. So we gave it a shot, and it was great. I mean, our first Megadon toy sold out pretty darn quick, considering it was for a game that didn't release until like 3 years later.
Yeah.
So, it was a lot of learning, a lot of coordinating with overseas companies and all that kind of stuff, but very, very fun, very creatively satisfying.
I'm sure the pandemic doesn't make that any easier.
No, it's made it way harder.
Just sounded like the kind of thing that would throw a wrench in the works there. And
yeah.
I say that because I've got a friend I worked with. I actually worked at Toys R Us as a teenager, which was my own little bucket list item. But so I met a friend there who I was interested in video games. He was interested in comic books. That was his thing. And we went like, wouldn't it be great if we could go in together on projects later one day? And we've gotten closer than you would expect, because two teenagers going like, here's what we're going to do one day. Like, I ended up getting into game development in my own way, and he's got an indie comic label now, and we still meet all the time and talk about like, when are we going to do this? We are for sure going to make this happen at some point. And it's still like, even at this point, it's like intimidating, you know?
Yeah. It's a scary thing, but I mean, intensely and incredibly rewarding. That's really cool that you kind of both followed your dreams from when you were even teenagers. That's awesome.
It is. And it's like, it's why I spend a lot of effort on content where the message overall is like, if this is what you're that passionate about, there's not much to stop you. You can do it badly for a while and learn how to do it better. But I mean, you can do almost anything, you know, you can't spread wings and fly. That's about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. The democratization of the tools to do a lot of this stuff is, I mean, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't know anyone who could have said, oh, I'm going to start a game company, or I'm going to start making toys with like no money, right? Like, it was impossible, but now feasible.
Yeah. It's only a question of time and determination. So
yeah.
Tell me how you ended up with all of the Godzilla VHS copies.
So I love Godzilla movies. I've always loved them. And there was a Godzilla movie released in 1998 with Matthew Broderick that is pretty notorious within the Godzilla fandom. I don't like that movie.
I knew this had to be ironic on some level. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like that movie. I don't know many people who do. If you do, that's cool. I'm not yucking anybody's yums, but I don't like it. And my coworkers used to like to tease me because I don't like it, because, you know, they'd be talking about Godzilla and they'd be like, oh, you mean that movie with Matthew Broderick? And I was like, no. The real Godzilla. And they'd be like, pretty sure that's just a Matthew Broderick movie. And it got to the point, I don't know who started this, But I'd have people over, or people would be at my desk, and I would leave and come back, and I would just find Godzilla 1998 VHS tapes on my desk or in my house, like that weren't mine. Like they got to the point where I had like 4 of these tapes, and I don't know who was leaving them or where they were getting them from. So I decided to just lean into the bit. And every time I saw a Godzilla 98 tape, I bought it. So, I'd go to a flea market or a Value Village. I'd see one, it's like $1. I'd buy it. And now I have over 40 of them. So
I was going to say, I saw the tweet and there was a certain number then, and I was wondering, like, that's been a while now. Are you still collecting them?
Oh, it's great. I got to do a collection update. That's for sure. It's grown quite a bit.
That's amazing. If I run into mine, I'll be more than happy to ship it out. Because I did have that video at the time, and it got me thinking, like, because I was pretty sure this was a goof, and you weren't like a super fan of that one installment in the series, but I felt like somewhere there is some person who thinks like maybe Matthew Broderick was even involved in like inventing Godzilla. Like, is this one of those? Like, was this his idea? This is fantastic. You should run with this.
They think the new ones are remakes of that old one from 98. Yeah.
Right. Can't believe he's really done well for himself. That is outstanding. I also like hearing that shoot 'em ups are on your mind, because I'm a fan of that stuff too. So let me throw a vote in that direction, because I think you guys would do a fantastic one. That'd be awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things where like I don't know how big the market for shoot 'em ups is, but like I don't care. I just want to make one. They're fantastic. They've been. I think it was my pandemic obsession has been playing shoot 'em ups for like, I try to clear them in 1 credit, or I try to get a high score, really just like sink my teeth. And when I was a kid, I used to just play them to beat them. I'd feed the quarters in the arcade machine. And now it's like, they can suck up a lot of your time if you become really obsessed with them. So yeah. There's some cool communities around shmups online that I've kind of hooked into.
Yeah, and if you get into emulation, it becomes a big topic, because so many of those classic arcade machines and stuff, and those games will hurt your feelings. They get wild, and it's some of the most fun gaming you can do. I'm not a super skilled player or anything, but I love playing those games. It's awesome. Yeah,
they've got you can play them for 5 minutes, you can play them for an hour, and they're fun. That's what I really appreciate about it.
Yeah. Do you see yourselves leaning towards like maybe some kind of a film, cartoon tie-in for Dawn of the Monsters? Anything like that on the horizon, perhaps?
I mean, I would love to. But if someone at Netflix or wherever is interested, give me a call.
Yeah.
Tweet at me, DM me. We really like the IP. Our fans really enjoyed the story. We'd love to move it into any kind of transmedia stuff. I'd really love to do a comic book even. I think it would make a great comic. We did the mini comic, but I'd like to do like a full-on graphic novel.
I could see that. I could see that working real well. And like you said, Netflix seems to, they do seem very interested in games, and, we're starting to see some game adaptations, and they're, I don't know how it's exactly working, but they're distributing games. As a Netflix subscriber, I should probably find out what that is and how it works, but they do seem interested in it. I still don't know what it is, though.
It's so hard to find. I have Netflix as well. And like, I think you have to load up Netflix on your phone and then scroll down to games, and then they have games and you can just download them. Like it's weird. It's kind of hidden. I don't know why.
It almost, it feels like an unintentional soft launch or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have really powered through a lot in a short amount of time, but I want to make sure people know where to find your stuff online, what to look for in the marketplace, anything you want to plug.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on Twitter at 13am games, 13amgames.com. If you Google 13am games, you'll find any of our stuff with regards to that. We have a Discord as well that, we use pretty often. There's a good community there of Runbow players and Dawn of the Monsters players and all that kind of stuff. As far as my own personal stuff, obviously Seismic Toys is my toy company, seismictoys.com. our Instagram, all that stuff. That's where we sell and produce our toys. And my blog, controlallmonsters.com, which I will update. I do have an article that I've written. I just have to hit publish. And my Twitter @Goji_guy, if you want to hear the insane ramblings of a guy who owns 40 copies of Godzilla 98 on VHS. That's the place to hear him.
Alex, you've been a super good sport, and I will be looking for Godzilla 98 on VHS here in the theater room, and the rest of us will be looking for whatever's coming next. And check out Dawn of the Monsters, available just about everywhere. And come back and check in soon. This was fun.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Alright, if you enjoy Game Dev Breakdown, please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find more episodes at anchor.fm/GameDevBreakdown. You can find news and other fun stuff that we do at CodeWritePlay.com. If you want to reach out on Twitter, you can hit up at GameDevPod, at CodeWritePlay, or me, Mechatodzilla, with 1D and 2 L's. Feel free to get in touch about the show, guests you might like to hear, anything you can think of. If you're interested in my book, Inside Video Game Creation, that is still available just about everywhere, and there's a lot more fun stuff on the way. So thanks everybody for listening. Have a good one, and we will talk to you very soon.